Hello everyone. It's another day of world building here in my house, and I lived a tragedy yesterday because yesterday was supposed to be stage 2 of the process, and I explained so many things so happily. By the way, that reminds me. Yes, this time is all good. So I was happily recording everything that I was doing yesterday, and then way later I realized my microphone was not set up correctly, and so there was no sound, and I was so pissed off by that. So from yesterday's process, there's only gonna be a short because I just don't feel like making a voiceover again. So the goal was to just capture everything as it goes with as minimal edition as possible. And so yesterday was a tragedy for me. So today we're just gonna go straight to stage 3 of the process. And I want to share with you a few things that were supposed to happen yesterday. But so basically, the way I am working on my process of creating concept art for the world building of my sci-fi novel. By the way, if you don't know me, my name is Catherine, and I am a multidisciplinary artist. I explore different disciplines such as drawing, painting, music, cinema, storytelling, AI, if you don't want to call it AI art, at least AI assistance in art, for special effects and everything. And so basically all the skills I need to learn to tell the stories I wish existed. I am a really big fan of fantasy and science fiction. Those are my biggest sources of inspiration. And the reason why I am able and blessed to do this every day full time is because I do have a peculiar way to monetizing this. And if you are interested into finding that out, you can just go on the rabbit hole of all my links. And then if you want to know me better, you can go there, but it's not mandatory. So I am discovering this process as I go, of how you come up with a design for a certain element on your world building. So my first stage is the stage that I call abomination stage, because the goal is not for it to be pretty, it's just to spit out some idea without any judgment, any plan, any reference, any concept, nothing. And then afterwards you look at the thing, and then you can decide what that thing is. So in stage number 1, I got this idea, which I experienced as a revelation for the story. So my bottleneck, let's say, is that the story is about another planet far away from here, but it's being populated by humans that once went to that planet, and I didn't have the answer on how they went there, why they went there, why they stayed there. And then by this exercise of just drawing something and then deciding afterwards what the thing would be, I came up with the idea. So the idea is this being called Ractis, or we don't even know if it's a being, a god, a cosmological phenomenon, but that thing took a spaceship from a human spaceship in the 23rd century. Okay, they were just doing a routinary trip from Earth to Saturn. Like, imagine that we can do that in a couple centuries, and it's like everyday thing. You just open a station in one of the satellites of Saturn, and then a big spaceship with thousands of people with all professions and skill sets go there, and then they are sort of abducted by this thing they don't understand, and they are basically transported very fast, like teletransported to another point of the universe that is so far away. So that was the whole idea. And so I was looking at this drawing, which I will show you in a moment. And then this word Ractis came into my mind. And I said, okay, that thing is called Ractis. And that's the name of the humans in the story in that spaceship here. And I truly experienced that as like, wow, what a revelation, what a genius I am. The ideas just flow in my head. And then it was very funny because a few hours later, I had to go back to real life and do some errands. And I ordered an Uber. And the Uber, car that came to pick me up was a Toyota Ractis one. So I was like, I can't believe my subconscious mind trolled me in that way, that I thought it was like, wow, this incredible name. And then it's just a model of a car. So the subconscious mind picks up random things that you were collecting without even noticing, and then combines them in strange ways to give you those ideas. So it was very interesting to me, like, you don't really need anything grandiose or special or original to make something that's interesting, because it's the execution and the combination of the elements that matter. And at the same time, it was fascinating how symbolic it was, because a Toyota Ractis or any car is designed to take you from point A to point B. And this thing that I created takes the humans from point A of the universe to point B of the universe. So it's sort of it's like, it's the same idea of moving, it's just that not that far. And I found that very interesting. So I was playing around with these ideas about the relativity and space, and if we were to imagine space or the universe as a piece of cloth or fabric, and then if you just fold the fabric randomly, you're gonna have folds that start to appear, but you cannot fold the fabric in the exact same way twice. So the whole idea of wormholes exists, you have a Stargate and all of these, so it's not like new, but the spin, I guess, that I gave to it is that it's completely like in the story. It's not something that they could control at all. It's not something that they can invoke in any way. And even if they could create it again, there is almost no chance that the fold is going to be the same to be able to go back. So it means that even if they could create the phenomenon at will, maybe they wouldn't be able to control the outcome, and so they could even end up in a worse place in universe, right? So it's completely random event that will affect human history, fictional human history in a very interesting way. So they end up in this planet. And then they are faced to reality that they will see Earth. They won't see the Earth anymore, and they have to start all over, because the options are either dying inside the spaceship or attempt to conquer the new planet that has a slightly different atmosphere that they have to adapt and everything. And then 5,000 years after that, there's going to be like a whole civilization in that planet. And don't worry, it's not even a spoiler, because that's just like the prequel or the beginning, the reason why this world exists, but it's not even the main story. That's going to be in the novel that I'm writing, that maybe in the future, like eventually I'd like to publish. So I figured, why not creating the world in public, since I also like visual arts in general. So I'm not only about writing. So I figured, why not? So first thing I wanted to share with you, because I'm kind of discovering the process and creating the process at the same time as I am creating the concept art for this. So after my first drawing that you have the video on how it came up, and you have it already on my channel if you want to see that. After that, I figured, okay, now I need some sort of organization to do this. I don't know if properly is a word, but something to keep my ideas organized. So with the help of Cloud Code, I built a small app, and I built means Cloud Code built it for me. I just told it what I wanted. And so this is a mood board app. And in this mood board, I can create worlds, different worlds, because when you will be following me for a while, if you do subscribe, most probably you might see me like going from one world to another, and maybe tomorrow I'm working on a historical novel or on a steampunk historical novel, because the truth is I keep getting ideas all the time for different stories. And right now I am very drawn into the sci-fi novel, and so I am all into that. But maybe next week I just get an idea that doesn't belong to this world. So from now on, like from the beginning, I want to keep that organized. So I already have like the possibility to have another world here and work on that world, and then go back and forth. And so don't get confused. It's just flow with the chaos. This is what I'm trying to do here. So at least you wouldn't get bored about talking about the same things all over and over. So yeah, right now we are in this world that I call Silthera. So Silthera is the new planet where they are going. It's maybe temporary name, maybe I change it later or not, I don't know. But so then I can enter into that, and inside each world I can have different projects that belong to a certain element for the world building. Like here we have for now Ractis, then we can have the spaceship that the Earthlings are using when they get abducted there. Then we can have, I don't know, how they dress, how they live, how their cities look like, how the landscape of that planet looks like. So everything is going to live here, and each thing will have its own project. So that's how I created it. So if we get into Ractis, we have two parts, two tabs. So first tab is the references tab. Here is where I look for other people's art to get inspired for my own art. So things that remind me a little bit of what I want to express, and then I am able to see a pattern on all those things. So the eye is the central thing. A conceptual inspiration would be the angels as described in the Bible, although my thing is not that, but it reminds me to that. The idea of this eye floating in space, as you can see here, or this artist here, I find it amazing. Like the idea of the immensity of this path of light. And imagine instead of a person here, it would be a spaceship. So that's how small the spaceship would look in front of that phenomenon. The composition, circular composition, like a tunnel sort of perspective here, very dynamic. Obviously, the black hole couldn't you have to put the black hole in here, because sort of this idea, but not like because it's a black hole. It's just that the space is warping around them, right? And that's what I want to try to bring on paper. But after reflecting upon it, we have some Salvador Dali as well here. I love this image because of the fact that this lake comes from the lacrima, the tears thing. I don't know how to call it in English. And I do have that on my first sketch. So the first tab is just references. For example, this one, I love it because of the color and the fact that here is like deforming, like this is just lines, is not really particularly anything. And then we have these reflections here as if it was some water or something. And then the star here, so instead of the star, there's going to be the eye. So one reflection that I was having at first was, first idea, something that you can read with no mistake possible as an eye. And then I was like, what if it just sort of looks like it could be an eye, but I think that literally putting an eye there will be more powerful. So I went back to that idea. And so here I can just enter. So the reason why, because some of you might ask, why don't you just use Pinterest like a normal person, right? And the reason being is two reasons. One is that here I have no distractions. It's just my images that I created for a specific reason, and I can I put a limitation of a maximum of 25 images, because more than that apparently is just clutter. And it's not like the goal of this is to get clarity on the concept. It's not to just collect random pictures because they look nice. So it's good to have a limitation. And the other reason is because here I can send voice notes with my reflections. I can write on each image here why I chose to keep this image is the sense of immensity, for example, with a little person in here, and the immensity of this tunnel here, and the dynamism of the image, etc. And then I connected my local LLM, which is Gemma 4 is the one I'm using. And the only thing this thing does is a very objective description of the image. So it just sees the image and it talks about the composition that it's using and the color scheme it's using, etc., and the light as well. So it helps me find like a pattern between among all the pictures that I chose. Like there's like common things that I can start seeing, and I can start building an image in my head. So that's the first step. And then the second tab is the development tab. So here's like a journal of my drawings, and as you can see, this is just I personally don't like them, but as I said, the goal here is not to be pretty yet. Also, I was starting quite late with this, and that didn't help me, because you need some time for drawing nice things, especially when you are not very technical like me. I need more time. So today I started earlier to see if I can give myself more time to do something more interesting, technically speaking. And so here's stage 1 of the first sketch. So here's where the eye came from, but in this part I wasn't really thinking I want to draw an eye. It was just lines, and then this thing happened, and the thing gave me the whole idea. And then I wanted to develop further on the idea, and so this will be sort of the background where the situation happens. And so here on the outer part is like the part of the universe they come from, and here on the background is where they are heading. And here there's gonna be the eye, and from the eye there is the spiral tunnel thing forming, and this the concept of the tear, which is already here. I decided to keep it here, so like a sort of a river of energy. And this little dot here is supposed to be the spaceship. So that's how big this thing is. That's the whole concept here. So today we are going to draw the eye, and I was watching some tutorials, to do this properly. And I was venting to ChatGPT on, I am so pissed off, the thing is ugly again. I was wanting to, this is the big problem with artists, is that we want the masterpiece right away, and it's very, very hard for us to go through the crap stage of the process. So that's why I'm forcing myself to share this. It's not easy because you don't want to be roasted online, you don't want to be criticized, you compare yourself to other people who are more advanced than you in certain aspects, and you compare yourself to them, and you're like, this is horrible, how am I going to share this? But at the end of the day, you know what, it doesn't matter. And I think even the process of getting from this to something interesting is even more interesting than just being perfect right away. So let's go here, and I will start drawing the eye. So we will start with a human eye. Okay, I'm gonna start with the human eye, but not like a complete eye. It's the eyeball. So let's do it big. So this will be the eyeball. I think you don't really see it yet because my thing is, the pencil is too dark. We use the human eyeball as a starting point, but this thing doesn't need to look human at all. So actually what's interesting is that you can clearly read an eye on it, but it's like nothing you have seen before. So it's like an eye, but at the same time it's not like, it has to be somewhat disturbing. Because if you imagine, like, you are in the space chilling, like, oh, we're just going to one of the moons of Saturn, and then this thing happens, and then the Earth disappears, and you find yourself in a completely different system, in a completely different planet, and all you know is this eye-shaped thing looked at you, told you his name, and then proceeded to basically kidnap you. It's a bit concerning, to say the least, right? So, which means that here, the iris maybe doesn't need to be round. Maybe it could be another shape. So what about being... I don't want to do like cat eye either. So the first option would be like this, with like, that could be one thing. If you just keep the, how you call that, the pupil, you know the pronunciation, the thing, you know what I'm talking about, that. Maybe we can keep it like oval, like that. But I'm not sure. I'm not sure about the iris. I'm not sure. You know what? What if, like, if it was round, but the pupil, the thing, like, if that thing is still round, but the pupil thing is not round, it looks weird enough already. So for a first version, the most interesting part, like I'm so looking forward for this to be finished. I hate my continuity camera. Why does it keep disconnecting all the time? Anyway, when this thing will be finished, the funniest part will come, which is figuring out how a phenomenon like this would sound like. So that will be the beginning of the soundtrack of this thing, and that is gonna be fun. Like that, and figuring out how Cubase works, because up until now I was working on Logic Pro, and I kid you not, the DAWs just were so hard for me to comprehend. Like it took me so long, and the only software that I could ever understand was Logic Pro. So I am terrified about learning Cubase, to be honest. It looks very intimidating. Okay, so now, yeah, good luck. We are going to do the iris, because honestly, just changing the shape of the pupil, it's already enough for it to look kind of disturbed. I think the fact that this thing is not perfectly centered also helps making it look weird. Like if I were doing this on Procreate, where I have tools to center everything, to make perfect circles, maybe it wouldn't look the same. Like it would be too perfect, and I don't know, it has its charm, this thing not being perfectly round and perfectly centered. Which means embrace imperfection, guys. I'll just go with it. Not perfect circle. Another really nice thing of doing this way is that when I publish the novel might include like these original drawings. So it could even be like an illustrated novel from the start. Or maybe even working with someone who is actually better than me and who can take my ideas and bring them even farther. So now, how to light this thing is a good question, because in space, really, you have lots of freedom to light this, because like where does the light come from? There's not like a clear light source in space, right? So sort of can light this, and even if I do it a little bit however I want to, it could only add to the weird. I should have added some eyes reference, I do have some eye reference. For example, here, that's a good one. So he did do something similar, and then, well, this thing doesn't really have like an eyelid, but yeah, it does have to have the eyelid, otherwise where will be the tear, right? obviously there is some shine in the iris. There is like a normal eye will have the light reflection. But maybe one way that we can use to make this more disturbing is to not put the light reflection on the eye. So instead of looking at something with volume as it normally does, obviously, it rather looks like something concave, like a tunnel. So people swear it's an eye, but it could not be. So because the reality inside the fictional context of this is that they don't really know what this is. There's some acrylic paint, some white acrylic paint that will help me a lot to do the lights in here, because this doesn't really show. It does look like this is adding something, but I'm not really sure. This is gonna break my paper. This does show. It's so thick that particular pencil here is a watercolor pencil. I actually chose it more because of the shade of red that I wanted, rather than the fact that it's a watercolor pencil. However, what will happen if we just try to activate the watercolor factor in here? Let's try to find out. I guess they call this mixed media. This is totally not the paper for water thing. Okay, that's better. You're wondering why I am hovering my brush over my desk is because I had some drops of water falling. So that's the reason why from the brush here. Scared. Let's just go with something less risky first. as you can see, really good art is a matter of time. Like, the more hours you give to something, the better it will become. Like, the more time you spend on your song, on your book, on your drawing in this case, the better it becomes. That's why we develop this habit of being a bit perfectionistic, and so we can be on and on the same thing and reworking on it, and then you never finish the thing because it's always something. That's the risk. This shade of red, like carmine red, is my favorite color. Oh, that. Could you stop this? Well, so this will be it. Like, I like this. I'm starting to like this. This looks like something. It does look like an eye. Now, in the first sketch that I did, if we go back to the screen here and we go back to the development thing, you can see that it has this sort of thing, and I would like to keep this idea. And here you see it's a spiral. So here in the second sketch that I did, we have this tunnel of warping space, and then we have the eye here. So, and then we have this, as if from this, as if the spiral was emanating from the eye like this, and you are basically inside the eye. That's the whole idea. So, which means that here we need to create this tail here, and so we already made a bit of some modifications to what a human eye looks like. I mean, it's very slightly, like the iris is not completely round, and sorry, one second. The iris is not completely round. The pupil is oval, and then obviously it's there's no white, it's yellow, the thing around, like the actual eye. So now for having the thing here, so that would be, start to redo the process. I should have like some paper towel with me or something, now that I come to think about it. Okay, so now we come to the trickiest, riskiest part of all, because as you can see on the reference image, we have some sort of an eyelid. And this is hard because I have the eye like that, and if I mess up, I have messed up the whole drawing. And it's not like on Procreate where you can just undo things and redo the layer, and rescue the thing if you mess up. We don't have that safety net here. So normally, and it's only going to be the contour of the eyelid. We don't really need like a solid eyelid. It's just even like the line of it, and then how you call the little hairs on the eyelid. I forgot, but that thing, those little hairs, could be some rays of light, and then we have the tear thing here, but it's just a line. It's not even like, as I say, the real eyelid thing. If we check some of our references for the eyes that we have here, maybe we can find something like here. This one, for example, it's a good example of what we could do, because here, like normally the technical thing says, like the rule is that the eyelid normally goes over the iris. So that will make for a normal looking eye. Like if you look at my eyes right now, you don't see a space between the eyelid and the iris. But if I was to look a bit crazy, right, then you do see the white, as in this Dali painting. So we could either do that, and even here he kind of broke the rules, because normally the hairs are on like two lines and it goes on the upper line, but he didn't do that here. He just didn't care, although he was able, like he did have a really good technique, but he chose not to use it sometimes. And this, I'm not sure. I think it's Salvador Dali too, but I'm not sure, because this is how I found the picture, and there's no signature or nothing, so I don't know who did make it. I don't know who made this painting. I think it's him, but I'm not sure. And here there is no little hairs whatsoever. So my idea is to just keep this suggested as a line as I did here. It's just better done. So we could either go surprise crazy, or we could go normal. I think that for this, crazy is the way to go, because we want this to be something disturbing. Like this is like, you have to imagine that the humans that get absorbed by this phenomenon in the novel are so terrified of this that even 5,000 years later, many of their descendants are still dreaming of this moment. So it really is something that affected this group of people in the story. So it does need to look terrifying or disturbing, or like, what the hell is this thing and what did it do to us, right? I do feel like it needs more references for eyelids. I was looking at tutorials for this, and I'll just try to follow him. So let's go with the pencil first. It will hurt less if I get it wrong with a pencil, because it almost doesn't even show. But like if I were to do this like that, he does this, and then we have that here. And we have, I don't even think we need to be super precise on this. Like it could be on, like if we wanted the rays of light, they could go from here like that only, and that sort of reminds the little hairs, because of this reference here that I want to show you, that I really liked here these rays of color. So I want to keep that a little bit. Maybe it's not gonna be maybe that straight, but like that only. And here we have this thing, and I could just go, not even the whole thing, just does have expression, although yeah, I would just leave it as like that, and then here I wouldn't bother too much. I would just and that's all the eyelid this thing will have. It's not even an eyelid. It's an excuse for having a tear. This is what it even could have, like the rays of color just around like that. Like we don't even need like the little hairs. I forgot the name of. So I think this is it. This is Ractis. This is a monster. I like it now. Yeah, that's stage 3 of concept art making for me. Now it's time to work on the background. So this will be like the pretty version of the thing that I had before. So yeah, if you are new here, if you like this process, consider subscribing. And if you want to get to know me better, just go down the rabbit hole of all my links. And yeah, we'll see you tomorrow with the continuation of this process.